Hello, and welcome to the JubilAge podcast with your host, Carol Chiarito. Carol, it's good to be with you again, and I understand that we have a tis the season kind of timely guest, if you will.
Hey, Bill. Yep, you are exactly right. It is tis the season. It's Medicare Madness season, which is what we're calling this podcast, Medicare Madness.
Yeah, it is correct. I actually, full disclosure, I know a couple of people who sell Medicare who are agents, insurance agents. And if you want to get them on the phone in a couple of weeks, that's not going to happen. They have very, very, very full calendars.
Very good. Well, I am excited to bring in my friend who sells Medicare, and he is from the great state of New York, James Grabinski, who we call Jim Grabinski in my world. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon. Nice to be invited. Thank you very much.
And you're about ready to go into your Medicare Madness season, right?
Well, this is the madness time, but I work year-round in the business in the Medicare field. It's people turning 65. I think 15,000 people a day turn 65 approximately. So there's business year-round.
So tell me a little bit about you and how you got into this business.
Well, I got into it. I've been in the life insurance business for over 25 years, and I got into Medicare about 8 years ago through a friend of mine that was just selling United Healthcare. I really shouldn't mention the names, but I love helping seniors. I've always specialized in the senior market, and I just took off from there, where I built the general agency up and train agents daily. I go out into retail locations, help agents, whether they're in pharmacies and retail locations, food pantries. There's so many places that we can help seniors, senior communities.
This subject has got to be one of the hardest subjects to understand as a senior. I mean, it's one thing to understand your finances, but to understand insurance at the Medicare level it just seems so daunting. And a lot of the seniors that I talk to are like, oh, I don't even understand what I'm doing. I just do whatever the guy tells me. And you probably see that a lot. People are just confused. So just briefly, let's talk about the different kinds of Medicare plans that are available when you start thinking about getting on to Medicare, or when you should think about it. And we'll go into some of the specifics.
Well, people should start thinking about it, I believe, well before they turn 65, because it is involved. The plans change yearly by all the carriers. I'm certified with about 15 different carriers, and it all goes by zip code. And I will tell the clients or prospective people that go on to Medicare.gov, put your zip code in, and just float around there and then ask me questions, because it is not a one-size-fits-all. And people don't realize a carrier in New York is completely different than a carrier in Florida or Georgia or Colorado. So it is very involved. And just in January 2025, the whole system is changing as far as the maximum out-of-pocket for prescription drugs. There used to be what we call a coverage gap that could have gone up thousands of dollars if somebody was on an expensive pharmaceutical drug. Now it's capped at maximum $2,000 per year. So it's going to save a lot of people a lot of money. A lot of carriers dropped a lot of their plans. So I tell everybody to please contact an agent before January comes to go over what's available to them. And I tell them, try to find a personal agent in their area or call someone that's knowledgeable. You want to deal with a broker agent that does not just handle one carrier, because it is confusing. And in different states, like Pennsylvania, for instance, they have different companies compared to New York or New Jersey or Colorado.
Right. And how about there's that look back to how much you're going to pay for your Medicare, just your Medicare Plan B, right? Depending on how much money you made a few years ago. So,
Correct.
in reality, you should really start looking at Medicare a couple of years before you turn 65, not just maybe that same year, correct?
Correct. If over 100,000, most people are paying right now 174.50 for Part B if they're under $103,000. They get to go over that. That's a single. It's 200 and change for a couple. So depending upon what you're making the last year, because they'll go the year before, that's how much you're going to pay a Part B. There is a scale, and people that are making a lot of money are going to pay a lot for that Part B. But usually under 103,000, they're going to pay about 174.50. So they should look into things like that.
So you've got your Medicare Part A, which is free, your Medicare Part B, which is what you just described. And then what we're talking about a little bit here are this is I guess commonly referred to as the supplement plans, Medicare Advantage versus what? Let's talk about the differences in all of those different types of plans.
Okay, supplements, Medigap, some people call them Medigap, med supplements. That's 100% medical. Then over 90% of doctors anywhere in the country usually accept Medicare and Medigap. But that is strictly medical. And for people that have a lot of illnesses that go to the doctor quite often, I usually suggest a Medigap med supplement policy. For people that do not go to the doctors quite a bit, I recommend an Advantage plan. Reason being, Advantage plans have vision, hearing, and dental. There's a lot more available to them. So if somebody's going to the doctor once every 3 months, doesn't take a lot of prescription drugs, then I suggest they go to an Advantage plan. And a lot of the Advantage plans cost nothing compared to a Medigap supplement policy that can cost a couple hundred. Plus, you need two policies. You need the Medigap, MedSup, same thing. When I said Medigap or MedSup, it's one product. Medigap, some people call it Medigap, some people will say MedSup. Then you still need a prescription drug plan to go along with that, and depending upon the drugs you take. That's why it's not a one-size-fits-all. And the price varies considerably on prescription drug plans. I myself, being a senior, I'm on an Advantage plan, and I love it. And I review myself once a year at least. And being that I represent 15 plus carriers, I look at what all the carriers offer. They're not the same. And the fact that you want to make sure your physician is in the plan, that what drugs you use, what tiers they are. There's all these little things you're going to, people learn. I learn. I'm still learning every day.
Absolutely. It changes. It changes so often. You gotta stay on your toes of what's happening. So that brings up a good point because a lot of people get on Medicare and they seem to just it's easier just to stay on the same plan and just renew that every year and then something happens like what's going to happen next year and a lot of the companies are going to change their drug plans and maybe their formularies are going to change as for what they discover or what they cover. But don't you think everyone should review their plan every single year?
Well, most definitely. That's, like I said, that's what I do myself. I tell clients, and I have clients religiously call me up around this time and say, what do you suggest for this year? This year, it's changed considerably because a lot of companies have dropped a lot of plans. So those people are getting letters now saying your plan has changed and you must sign up. And every company is different. Some will automatically roll them into a plan. They need to call a broker agent or the company to see what's available. And that's where I come in. to basically suggest, and I ask them a lot of questions. I'll ask them on medications. Who's your doctor? Do you need extra help? If somebody's on Medicaid and Medicare, there's what we call DSNP. You probably see advertisements on TV. They always talk about DSNPs on TV, and which I'm against that, because they're talking about when they say you may get this card, get this lot of money. That's for people, in most cases, on Medicare and Medicaid. And there are levels of what we call LIS, which means low income subsidy. But getting back to people on Medicaid and Medicare, usually when people are on Medicaid and Medicare, the Part B is paid by the state. So they don't pay the Part B if they're on full Medicaid and Medicare.
Oh, see what I mean? There's so many different twists and turns to all of this. And I've worked with a few organizations like senior centers, or places where seniors can go, and they have, I don't know where they get the people, the recruits or volunteers who come in, and they help sign people up. And I'm thinking, gosh, what are they signing up for, and how are they shopping the market? Because it seems to me if they go to someone like you, Jim, or one of your agents, um, it's like going to the mall shopping for a pair of pants, as opposed to going to one department store that has one pair of pants, take it or leave it. Right?
Most definitely, because there are what we call captive agents out there that may just represent one company. When I first started, I was a captive agent. Then I realized I wasn't doing a service for these people, because there's so many other plans out there. There's plans that will not cover implants, and then there's plans that will cover implants. There's plans that will give money back for over-the-counter healthy foods, or in some instances they'll give it a Part B, what we call a buyback. Well, we have some companies will give $40 or $50 back for your Part B. Some companies will pay for utilities. In states like Florida, there's a high senior population, so there's a lot more competition down there where the companies compete. And some will offer transportation, some won't. So there's all these things and changes all the time. That's why it is important to speak to somebody and find the best plan that suits you.
One of the things I always get asked is, well, what happens if I pick this plan now, but my needs change in the middle of the year? Maybe I find out I have some kind of thing and I need some major um, surgeries, or maybe I need some different drugs that we didn't investigate when we first started on that plan. What happens in that case, Jim?
Well, that depends on the state you're in. Different states have different rules, but we have what we call SCPs in a lot of the country. They're called special enrollment periods. If the weather's been inclement, or if FEMA comes in and declares an emergency, that triggers an SCP, a special enrollment period that people can switch during the year. Or in some states, they have elderly pharmaceutical plans in the state. For instance, we have one in New York called Epic that allows us to switch people during the year. In New Jersey, it's called PAD, P-A-A-D. So there are different states, different rules. But I found in most states, the past couple of years, we have a lot of SCPs from Florida to Arizona. There's a lot of availability to switch people into plans.
Yeah, that's good. And how about traveling? So, speaking of Florida, there's all the snowbirds who maybe live in Michigan or whatever, and then they head to Florida for the winter. And are all of the Medicare plans reciprocal for doctors in different states or traveling?
Well, that's a good question, depending on the carrier. If it's a large carrier, most likely their network is nationwide. If you go to some smaller carriers, you'd have to ask if they have, will they pay out of pocket if someone's in Florida. There are small carriers that are only in the state that you're in, and no, they won't pay like if you had a cold or poison ivy. In an emergency, they're all liable. They all have to pay. In an emergency, they all have to pay. But if they're cold, poison ivy, smaller companies do not have to pay. And that's what I ask people. Do you travel a lot? Do you go to Florida? You go on vacation? Snowbird. I suggest a bigger company then that has a large network.
Right. And I suppose you could probably look that up as well online, right? Just type in that zip code to find out if your carrier goes in that area.
Correct. It's all zip code related. Like somebody asked me just yesterday, I just see this one plan in this area. And I said, what area? You have to look at the zip code. The one plan could be available in, one zip code and not in the next 10 zip codes. That's why I tell you, if you go to Medicare.gov, you don't have to join. You just put the zip code in there.
Right. So the other part that I think is really confusing are all the different types of plans, Part A, Part B, or you can get Plan F, Plan G, Plan LMNOP. And I think that's part of what is really important to understand is to let someone who understands all of the above guide you, in my opinion, instead of just trying to wing it.
Definitely. I mean, when Part A is hospital, Part B is primary care, Part C is Advantage plans, and Part D is prescription drugs. Then when you get into Plan F, G, and N, all those are supplements. And a lot of people do not understand supplements. But if somebody is very ill, goes to that doctor, no doubt they need a supplement.
Right.
Some people come out of a supplement and go into an Advantage plan. But yes, I think everybody needs to talk to a professional. And I'll just say, like a lot of people I come across, they've gotten calls from 800 numbers and somebody's in a call center. They're just going to sign them what's quick and easy. Where if you're dealing with an agent that's knowledgeable, you can always call that agent back. And for instance, I tell people, call me 24/7. I will always get back to them, and I will always help them anywhere in the country.
I used to say when you go to talk to an agent that's in your neighborhood or has an office that you can actually go see, if you're not happy, you can walk in and smack them. You can't do that over the phone, right?
A lot of times, I'll hear, I called somewhere and I was on the phone for an hour. So I need to know that because I will help you. I'm not going to put them in your plan unless you can help these people. So that is very important. Whereas you call a call center, you may get someone in Timbuktu and you're never going to speak to that person again. With me, like I said, I want to know and I'm going to help that person. You don't like that plan? I'll do my best to get you in another plan. I have people switch every year. And then they go to Florida and they call me up, I don't like it down here. Can you switch me? So yes, and I'll do it.
So let's just talk about what a typical review looks like. If I were to call Jim Grabinski to come over and say, hey, let's review my Medicare plan, what kinds of things would we go over and what would that agenda look like?
Well, I would tell them to have all their medications written down, who their doctors are, the primary care specialists, and look at their present insurance card to see who they have and what plan they're on. And then I can look at and compare the other plans in their area. It's not a 5-minute. It may take 10, 15 minutes because I've been doing it, so I know a lot of plans. Like I said, this year, a lot of companies have streamlined their plans and changed a lot of their plans because honestly, they're saying they're losing money after this a change of $2,000 maximum out of pocket compared to last year and other things. Could have been up to $8,000 on medications. And people have heard the donut hole and coverage gap. That's all gone now, which is good in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really good because you just don't know. You can't plan for those unknowns that come out of nowhere.
If somebody has a prescription that's costing $800 to $1,000 a month, it's great.
Poison ivy. I'm wondering where you came up with poison ivy. Is that something that you get?
That's something you get in New York here.
From your clients, I don't know. And I go to the doctor for my poison ivy, but
if it's an emergency and it's all over your body, they have to pay.
everything. Yeah, everything. We just got to think of everything. Spider bites, for that matter.
But yeah, if you have the sniffles and going for the cold, they're saying, "No, you're gonna have to pay that doctor."
Are you seeing an increase or a decrease in the number of doctors who accept Medicare?
Supplements, they're like I said, over 90% they accept. Advantage plans, some of them are getting out. They don't want to accept it because they're saying that the carriers are discounting them. But that's what you're going to find out, the primary cares and your doctor and relationships there.
Yeah, I remember when I was helping my mom when she moved from her hometown to where I live. It took us forever to find her a doctor because all the people I knew didn't accept her supplement. And, it was just, we finally, quote unquote, settled for somebody, which actually turned out fine in the end. But I just remember how hard it was to try to find someone new at that point. Which leads me to something that you said earlier in regard to the plans that offer dental, vision, and hearing. That is a very big deal, if you ask me. I mean, who aging is glasses, losing your teeth, getting dentures, and hearing aids, all three. And there's so much that doesn't cover those three things.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I love an Advantage plan. And speaking of, some of the companies make you go in network, where I've gotten complaints that they don't like the network they go in for dental. Vision and hearing, I rarely have that complaint. But there's carriers out there for dental that will allow you to negotiate with your dentist. You don't even have to tell them you have the insurance. So you say, "Gee, doc, I need a crown or I need an implant." You pay the dentist, go to any dentist you want, then you submit it to the certain carriers because they don't all allow this, and they will pay you back the dental, right, which is great.
Yeah.
Where the other carriers make you use their network. But I also want to say, this is what people get every year mailed to them, Medicare and You 2025. And quite honestly, I was reading again last night because I take a lot of courses for Medicare and different carriers. This can be confusing to the regular individual just getting on Medicare. When you're reading it, it tells you all about what's changing this year. It's confusing. If I was new to it and I was like, what is this? I'd say, I want to throw it away.
Yeah.
So it's tough out there. That's why, in my opinion, you need a knowledgeable person.
Yeah.
And not all agents are knowledgeable either. I have them work for me and I train them, but there's a learning curve. As you know, you've been in the financial business for years.
Yeah. Not everyone's created equal. That's for sure. But so are you licensed in all states, and do you have agents everywhere?
I have agents in a lot of different states, not every single state, but I have clients call me all the time. If I need a license in a state that I don't have, I will get a reciprocal license, because if the people want me to write it and do it, they have my phone number and call me anytime. I'm constantly going everywhere.
Yeah, growing.
And then I'll be in in Virginia this weekend with some agents and meeting some general agents down there and helping them out through Monday. And agents in Delaware, agents all over that call me.
So if someone was listening to this podcast and wanted to get a hold of you and ask you some questions, are you able to share that information with us that we can share?
Sure. We're not allowed to mention carriers, so to speak, without what we call approval from the carrier or the Center of Medicare Services. You'll see these TV commercials. I think one's on quite a bit on TV. And I laugh because they're talking about a Medicare, Medicaid client. Oh, you may. They just want somebody to call. And then they're going to transfer them into a call center to try to sell them their product. Right. And that's one company. You don't want that. You want somebody like myself or another agent that handles numerous companies. That's why I tell everybody, go to Medicare.gov and you'll see everything available for you.
Very good.
And even that can be overwhelming because there could be 15 plans in your zip code,
Right.
and you have to know, and it gives you a little short clip of what they are, but there's other pages you have to look at.
Right. So, your email is
Brigadier Concepts, BRIGADIER Concepts, CONCEPTS @gmail.com. Then my phone number is area code 845-270-0874. That is my company name. I'm licensed. I'm an agent license and a company license.
very good.
My upline, I have an upline out of Florida that I'm affiliated with. It's called Advocate Health Advisors. It's run by all ex-military people. And that's another thing. We do a lot of specializing with military. Retired military people will come across people say, oh, I'm good. I have government. I have Express Scripts. Well, a lot of these carriers have plans just for retired military, not prescription drug plans, because they get their drugs usually from the government. But the nice thing about the other plans, what we call MA plans, they're Medicare Advantage. They do not have a prescription drug because they don't. I have people joining just for the gym membership. Doesn't cost. The plan is $0. They get a free gym membership. If they need transportation, there's all these little extras they get. Or if they can't get to a regular doctor, they can go to a doctor other than going to a VA hospital.
Yeah.
There's so many benefits out there that people are not aware of, especially the courts.
What a great point, because that's just another reason to go to someone who actually understands and knows what's going on. We could talk about this probably for another hour, and I wish we had time for me to ask even more questions, but I think if you're listening to this podcast and you have questions going through your mind, definitely hop on, send Jim an email, Brigadier Concepts, and or even give him a call. I think that it's to your advantage to really understand what you're doing, why you're doing, and talk to an expert.
That no one is ever under any obligation. I'm happy to answer questions. They're never. I'm not a person. Oh, you're going to sign up with me? Ask me the questions. I love to help people, and they may say to me, "Oh, I got an agent." I said, "Well, you should ask them this." That's all. They don't have to sign up with me, and I will answer any questions for anybody. And if I don't know it, I will find the answer.
Carol, I want to jump in and ask one really quick question.
Sure.
Because I know when I was looking at different plans and deciding which way I was going to go and what I was going to choose, by far and away, the most confusing plan was Plan D, the drug prescription plan. You have any helpful advice or insight for folks who are looking and thinking, because there are a lot of different Plan D plans out there. You got some insight to help people, guide them in their choice?
Well, that's where the prescription drugs that they're taking come into effect. There's prescription drug plans cost $12, and there's ones that cost $80 to $100. And it boils down to their prescriptions. And like if somebody's not using many prescriptions, sure, take the cheapest, the most reasonable one out there. The other thing is people got to realize I've come across people that never signed up for a prescription drug plan. There is a penalty every month they don't have it. And I've seen people 5-10 years, and all of a sudden, oh, I want a plan because they weren't ill before. Then all of a sudden they get ill, and I have to tell them, say, you're going to get a penalty here. Unless, of course, you have Medicaid and Medicare, then there is no penalty. And there's other things that are available for people like pool trusts. Pool trusts, are trusts that people can get qualify for Medicaid. And that's another thing that can help people. There's a lot of things that a lot of agents aren't aware of.
Yeah. Okay, great. I just had to jump in there because I hands down found that the most difficult one to navigate. And again, you talk about the fact that the what used to be referred to as the donut hole is gone now. And boy, well, I mean, as you can attest, I'm sure, when he got into descriptions and talks about donut holes, man, I was like, my head would hit the desk and I just would pound it and think, I don't understand. I don't know how anybody navigated their way through this. Anyway, Carol, I'm sorry to jump in there. I was curious because I found that to be the most difficult part for me.
And it was for me too. I said, what the heck is the donut hole, the coverage gap when I was first learning? I said, this is very confusing. So just imagine the regular person turning to, what the heck is it? And I try to explain to it the situation to them, and nobody would understand that. Oh, I have a spend down. That's another thing on Medicare. They get the spend down. There are all these things that can be very confusing. It was confusing today, and when I first started. Now it's you know you learn it, and it can be very confusing.
Yeah. Well, I am just thanks for hopping in there, Bill, because those are the things that everyone is wondering, I think. And I think if we had a whole panel of people sitting out here asking you questions, you would just get bombarded by tons and tons of questions. And what a lot of people in the public don't really realize is what we as agents can do and can say out in the public. The best thing is just to find someone that is a professional. Call Jim if you're not sure. Maybe he's got someone in your area that could help you because he's all over the states, and you definitely would get someone who can answer those questions and help you out. So I appreciate your time today, Jim.
I'm so glad I could help, and hopefully, somebody gets some knowledge out of it. And that's why I tell you, go to Medicare.gov, put your zip code in. You'll probably be more confused looking at all the plans, but feel free to give me a call.
At least you'll know there's something out there that you can get covered by.
Exactly. That's why if they did call somebody an 800 number, they're going to say, hey, how come you don't offer me this plan or that plan? This is better. And then they're going to find out, well, that agent is captive or he only represents one company or two companies. Remember, you're in the driver's seat. You want to get to somebody for the right plan for yourself. Don't worry about that agent. He's going to shove you if he's one carrier.
Yeah.
You want to get the best plan for your money, even if it's a zero pay plan.
It's the shopping mall idea. You can't just walk into one store and try on one pair of pants. That's going to fit me different than it fits you.
Or brown shoes.
Right. Or brown shoes. That's right. That's right. You got to go shop around for those perfect pair of shoes that fit you just right. So shop around for your plans. Hey, anything else, Bill, we need to cover before we sign off for the day?
No. I think we got it pretty well covered, Carol. I mean, I would throw in here before you sign off that if anybody's listening to you for the first time, that they should probably just do something that's even simpler than all the Medicare stuff you've been talking about, which is hit the follow button, then become a subscriber. That way, every time you put out a new episode of the podcast, they'll be notified and they can give it a listen. And then one more thing. I want to add this, that if they like this podcast, if they find it useful, tell people about it, please. Word of mouth is a very welcome tool of promotion, and we would thank you for it. And that's all I've got to say, Carol. I'll turn it back to you now.
And that was probably the most important part. Jim, thanks again for your time today. Bill, thanks for your insight. And until next time, keep living, keep learning, and keep celebrating every moment. Be jubilant.